I got a phone call from Susie Cossack about setting up a benefit here at Info and DVD showings about the Seneca Women's Peace Encampment. And yeah, and we just organized it and got the word out.
Oh, hold up there. Slow down there, little Mickey. Had you ever heard of something called the Seneca?
No, I actually was, when Susie told me about it, I had written down exactly, what the encampment was. And because I also, I definitely wanted to be a part of this event, but I really didn't know too much about it. So I went and looked on the blog spot and was totally blown away at, the amount of energy and work that you two had put into it and all the information about it, and got schooled in it, as much as I could from the website, and decided that it was for sure a worthwhile project to work on. Yeah.
So are you saying that because now you know us and we're here, or did you really think that about the blog?
No. I felt that way, even with my critiques of peace movements and whatnot. I thought that it was extremely important as a, women-led, women-run camp, and, how many years of, organizing that you guys did. I thought it was extremely important, and especially relating it to the work I do here at Info and having it be, a women board and for women, by women. I thought it was really, the peace encampment and places like Info go hand in hand.
And so then tell us a little bit about what it is you do at Info and how long you've been involved with Info.
I've been involved for a little over 3 years. I'm the programs chair on the non-board, and I facilitate ideas that folks have and help them put their ideas into practice, kind of, and help them use the space. And just with right now we have a lot of different community groups using the space for meetings, and we get to hold events. If a woman got in touch with us a couple weeks ago about showing her documentary, and it just was so fitting to have a woman here who made her own film and to show it here. So it's just a little of what we do.
And for folks that don't know anything about the Women's Info Center, can you just, for the history's sake, give us a little rundown on what it is?
We Women's Information Center is 35 years old. It started in this area, maybe a few blocks away at first, and then we moved to this space. It was, I'm not sure what obviously the idea behind it was to have a space for women, to get referrals, to get help, also to celebrate being a woman and to promote feminist values. But at that time, back in 73, there was no crisis center type stuff in Syracuse. Like right now we have Vera House, which is the shelter for women and children, and we have Rape Crisis. Those two huge things came out of this building and the women who were working here. And we're like the second oldest independent women's center in the country, the oldest in the Northeast. We haven't taken government grants since the late 80s, early 90s. It's been all just, funded by women in the community. And about a year ago, we really hit a financial crisis where we were extremely in debt. We couldn't, pay any of the bills, and a few women stepped up to the plate after hearing about it, and we have women donating money. It's a 100 Women campaign. They have agreed to donate money, a certain amount, between like 10 and whatever they can afford, every month for a year. And they've signed on to do that again. So that helped us financially. We got people here to, patch up the walls, fix the bathroom. We had leaks. I mean, the place was not being used, and it was just falling down. So it all came together, and now we're stable and vibrant, and we got people coming to me all the time to set up programs. So, yeah, it's cool.
So tell us a little bit about what you do in your spare time.
Organize? No, let's see, I love to write. I write poetry. I like to just hang out and have fun, drink coffee, smoke cigarettes. I love to read anything from, Beat Generation, Diane DePrima, to nonfiction, feminist studies stuff. What else do I like to do? Art. charcoal painting, taking pictures,
So-
protests.
I was just gonna say, can you tell us a little bit about the activism?
Sure. Yeah, Eugene and I both work with a group called Syracuse Solidarity Network. It is a decentralized network of individuals that we all come together once a month to talk about the different radical groups in Syracuse, and we try to provide mutual aid. If one group needs help with a project, we can help them out. Or, we're trying to do a campaign right now against the Destiny USA Mall. That's going to be bigger than the Mall of America, and it's going to eat our town. So right now we're trying to find a way to kickstart a campaign with that. What else do I do politically besides SSN? Oh, I'm a member of an affiliate of the Northeast Anarchist Network, which was started a year ago in February. In Boston, they made a call for anarchists to come to Boston to talk about this huge demonstration called Biojustice. And, we had these assembly after assembly over, the past year and a half. And can you explain, Ian, a little bit? Better than I?
Sure. No, not better than me, but a loose network of groups reaching from Portland, Maine down to Pittsburgh, and it's a lot of folks who came out of the demonstrations that in '99 there was the demonstration in Seattle against the World Trade Organization, and since then a lot of anarchist and anti-authoritarian movements in the U.S. and elsewhere, probably more so elsewhere, have been growing. So a lot of us in the Northeast ended up in Boston. And we've been kind of trying to all figure out how to work together since, which has been varying degrees of success.
In Syracuse, the oldest peace group is the Syracuse Peace Council, and it's the oldest in the whole country. So we wanted to find a way to organize as anarchists and anti-authoritarians, autonomously, along with, having solidarity with what the Peace Council was doing, but we wanted to be able to do our own thing too. And so with trying to figure out how to do that, there was this call to go to the Northeast Anarchist. It wasn't called that at the time. It was just a consulta or a gathering of anarchists. We went there, and it really got the gears moving to how we could organize here and do stuff for ourselves. Seeing, because we were very isolated in Syracuse and don't get to see a lot of anarchists face to face and being in a big room, a huge assembly with them. So it was really kickstarted stuff here. And we held an assembly here in June of last year, and then the Syracuse Solidarity Network started in August. So it was really awesome to be able to do this anarchist organizing in Syracuse.
Do you feel supported by the peace groups, movements, organizations in Syracuse for the work that you all are doing in that realm?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Peace Council's been very supportive. Even if that's just letting us do our own thing and not, and respecting us as doing something a little different. But yeah, I think they've been very supportive. And, we show up at a lot of their demonstrations and might protest a little different. But, they've never been, they've always run up and given us huge hugs, and they're just so encouraging with what we're doing. So, yeah, I think they've been supportive. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we've been lucky in that the local kind of traditional kind of white pacifist left here has had a really kind of anti-authoritarian tradition, so it's kind of especially influenced by a lot of Quaker traditions, though in the 60s I think there was a kind of changing of the guard, but they've worked for a while trying to use consensus, trying to find non-hierarchical ways of organizing. So we've been lucky in terms of that. Not that there aren't some places of friction and whatnot, and I actually think in some ways, while they've been very supportive of us as anarchists, I wonder if folks have been as supportive of you as a feminist.
yeah, that's another story in a lot of ways.
We hear that other story.
yeah.
So, and when you're saying other folks, you're talking about peace. You're referring
Yeah,
to
like the
that
white left in Syracuse.
Do tell.
Well, it was okay. I walked into Info on Valentine's Day 3 years ago, not really having my shit together in a lot of ways, and just looking for support, and also wanting to find my own way to organize, and to, you know, just get involved with stuff. And I remember, like, after, you know, I got on the board as programs person, right, pretty much right after I came here for the first time. And I remember going to a lot of different Peace Council events, and folks' reactions to me saying, oh, well, you know, I'm Sera Brown, I work with the Women's Info Center, and just the attitude that I was getting from people, like there was something wrong with it, or that it wasn't as valued as stuff that the peace groups were doing. And it was very passive aggressive. It wasn't something like, nobody would tell me if Info had done something wrong in the past even, so it was like I couldn't even get a succinct history of what Info was, because even like the board that was here when I was here, some of them had been around for a long time, some of them were new, and it was just like, you know, we're 35 years old, blah, 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 and here, you want to help do this, you know, because everybody was really stressed. So it's like, I really got like this attitude of, you know, the Info wasn't a very good place for me to work, and, you know, and that I should have been, you know, automatically going to the Peace Council as they were asking me to do stuff, and I was like, no, I really want to concentrate on this stuff. You know, and that's because a lot of the folks that had started Info had really turned their back in a lot of ways, and really had been like, no, I've done my time, that's it.
Rejected what?
Rejected Info.
Okay.
And really, like, there was no, you know, there was a feminist collective on SU for a few years, but that wasn't around after, what, 2000?
Yeah,
2001? So there was really no, like, women organizing or women-centered activism in Syracuse, and it was really just like minimizing and frustrating to me, you know, because I figured, oh, I'll do stuff at Info, and, you know, the Peace Council can work with me, and we can do all this stuff together. And it was like, no, I'm here alone, you know, nobody's helping me, and people just weren't being supportive. You know, and it was just a shock. And it's really, you know, I feel like as a woman and as a young person, because I'm 26 right now, but I just turned 23 when I started, it was like I really had to earn this position and this respect in this way that I don't think a man would have to do, or an older woman would have to deal with. You know, it was like I came in with, you know, pink hair and 16 holes in my face and, you know, crazy clothes, and it was like, and, you know, patches and shit, and no one would take me seriously, I felt like. Till stuff really started picking up with Info, when Info kind of got its act together, you know? And that's when I finally earned some respect, like, wow, okay, Sera's actually doing stuff.
I think, you know, that attitude, now when was it that you first came here?
05.
Yeah, and I think the attitude too from the pacifist groups that they're working on the important stuff with the war.
Oh, totally.
And then you've got the other anarchists. Well, they're working on the important
and
stuff. The class war.
Over here, you know, doing shift work, talking to women who are getting beaten up by their husbands and raped, and I'm doing all this crisis stuff with no formal training, just trying to, you know, I remember getting a phone call on my home phone on a weekend day. It was holiday too, and these women needed housing. They needed it now, and I got it for them. And that was amazing for me. But it's like I'm doing all this work, and they're just, you know, it didn't matter to them.
Mm-hmm. And how would you characterize the relationship between Info and Peace Action now?
Oh, I think we have, people are very supportive now. You know, I definitely like to collaborate with them more, you know, and do more stuff together. But like Peace Councils use the space for workshops and stuff, which is really cool. They've been in the process of moving from a new old building to a new one, so we haven't been able to really work on stuff together. But now I think it's good.
I think right now too that like oppositional movements right now, one of the biggest tasks that we have, especially for those of us, I guess we're not really that young anymore. But,
No, we're not in the youth anymore.
but one of our biggest tasks right now is trying to put together what the histories are of the groups that we're either, the movements that we're coming to, and that there's so many blind spots right now, which is one thing that was so exciting about the Encampment HeRSToRy project, because things like, we've all got these idealized ideas of what happened in the 60s, and there's a lot of work coming out right now, even, on the really popular level. There was the movie about the Weather Underground, there was the 60s TV series, and right now with it being 2008 and with the elections, everybody's talking about 1968 on the cover of Time magazine again. But in terms of what's happened in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, even for some places, that's been a real challenge sometimes, I think, for intergenerational organizing, is trying to uncover what those different paths, that movements and individuals, and then putting that in the context of...
Yeah, and I think, like, folks that have been organizing for so long and have seen so many wars, I think folks have a very hard time passing the torch to young people, and really, like, respecting and allowing young people to move, the political climate in different ways and to organize in different ways. But yeah, I mean, it's like, to get a succinct history of stuff is really hard.
Even for upstate New York,
Yeah.
The fact that, like, we hadn't heard about the HeRSToRy project or heard about the Encampment from other folks, was so...
It like
crazy
blew
to
my
us.
mind
Yeah.
that I had never heard of it. Like, I like felt like ashamed, I'm like, oh my god, I'm working at info and I've never heard of it,
It's not you, though. But
No,
that's
I
our
know
movements.
that, and that's,
but
yeah.
in a way we should be.
Yeah.
In a way it is and people wonder why it is that the liberation movements in the U.S. aren't as strong as they should be, because we don't have those histories.
And I also feel like that so many older activists just feel really defeated, because the wars haven't stopped. Patriarchy isn't smashed. Like, there's, like, people have been trying for so many years and doing amazing things. And, I think if it's one thing that more seasoned activists have done, they've really empowered themselves and really, laid the work down for folks like me to be able to come and say, okay, I can pick this up, I can help move this along and try to carry on the tradition of resistance and, liberatory movements.
And how would you characterize, I know it's difficult to, make a generalization about individuals, especially if they're anarchists, but what would be the basic, profile for the folks that you organize with or hang out with or meet in terms of male, female, age range, gay, straight, educated, non-educated, money, not money. I want the whole, and social security numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, how about I describe it as a woman and
Actually, we'd like Eugene to do it as a woman and you to...
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the movement's great. I mean, I have a lot of participation in it. No. Well, okay, through my lens, the anarchist movement is disgustingly white, disgustingly male-dominated. It's usually, in a lot of ways, I feel like an elder at 26 because it's a lot of folks even way younger than me that stick around for 4 years and then drop out, kind of like getting a degree, and do a lot of like campus stuff, but don't. And this isn't everybody. This is just the larger, yeah. So, but yeah, it's very white. It's very middle class. I've never met rich people like I have at some anarchist things. Like, and that sounds like ridiculous, and I hate to even sound like the right-wing people that are like, oh, they're getting paid to smash windows in the streets, like in whatever. But no, it's like, just, I don't know why, but very few folks of severe privilege have turned out to anarchist stuff, and it makes little to no sense. But that's, I've seen that. I think a lot of it too is a lot of amazing, women and queer folks and a lot of the and folks of color. There's anarchist people of color. Is that a group still? Or is it
becoming
one?
There's
Yeah,
collectives,
yeah. There's collectives, and oppressed folks are definitely organizing a lot for themselves within these larger anarchist circles. And yeah, I don't know. And it's just a lot of people, a lot of men especially, can be really unaccountable when it comes to the way they treat other activists within the anarchist movement. And it's really sad, and it just seems like a lot of anarchist men don't want to put their politics into practice. They don't want to let marginalized or oppressed folks do things on their own and organize autonomously. Even within larger gatherings or demonstrations, I always find myself fighting with another man. They don't know how to step up, step back. They don't know how to, shut the hell up for 10 minutes to let other people speak. And even there was, for example, a Northeast Anarchist assembly in New York City, and a woman had brought up this amazing idea, and it got shot down on Saturday. On Sunday, a man brought it up, and people were just overjoyed to hear this amazing idea that they'd never heard before. Yeah. And so the women broke out into caucuses, because this is also how the Northeast Anarchist runs too. We have caucus breakouts. Like if somebody feels uncomfortable about something and it's a queer issue, they have a queer breakout. Or if folks of color, so the women broke out, and we decided that we were going to do a fishbowl, and that's when we sit in the middle of this huge assembly and talk about, what's messed up and just vent. And it was the scariest thing I think I've really ever done. A lot of men, say we're sitting here, they were like this, looking really mad. They really didn't have any good feedback after or try to change stuff. They just minimized it. And I just remember bawling after, and also being the only woman at this assembly who was doing feminist organizing in my hometown. Yeah, so it's so crazy, because it really runs, the anarchist movement is a lot of folks doing grassroots stuff, along with anarchist organizing. It really runs from across the board, from the crusty punk scenester kid, that likes to draw Circle A anarchies on everything, to folks really dedicated to stuff. For a lot of people, it's a phase. It's a damn good one, I think, even, but yeah, it's upsetting to not see the dedication, but I just think that anti-authoritarian politics are really important, and I think, I'd rather have people who are fucked up in the anarchist movement than have them join a sectarian group or something else, That's what I think about the anarchist movement. What do you think?
It's hard to follow that.
Try.
Oh, Lord. I don't know. That was a good, thorough...
Would you agree with her
through.
characterization of the general profile?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely within the bounds of the U.S.
Yeah.
We're talking about a movement that very much more comes out of punk rock music scenes and things like that, which definitely has a lot to do with it being this white, almost skater dude subculture thing, as opposed to the, traditionally where anarchist movements would come out of the labor movement and whatnot. Not that there aren't huge crossovers with that right now. I don't know, but that was pretty thorough.
Thanks.
Great. And what about in terms of the feminist movement and your involvement as a feminist? What are the challenges for you, even in cross-generational work as a feminist with other feminists and women who are younger than you, if you have any interaction with them, and women who are older and then way older?
I think some challenges, I'll just start with that, with older feminists, I think, has to do with a lot of the stuff that I've said before, just the whole passing the torch, which I can understand even in a lot of ways wanting to take ownership of, a lot of the groundwork that older women have done, so my generation could carry it on. And what else? What other challenges have I dealt with?
You characterize the peace movement that way, so you would say that's fairly consistent even with women, that you come up against that?
Sure, sometimes, I also think victories have been being able to work with women of all different ages, that's been a huge victory for me. I haven't really had the chance to organize or work with younger women as much. All my organizing has pretty much been done with older women, and it's been really, really great for me. I feel, even though sometimes it's hard. Do I get some?
You sure?
Okay. Even though sometimes it's been hard, it's been really nice because, I feel, really taken care of. I know I can go to them with questions that I couldn't go to my younger friends with, or even folks my age, because they haven't been doing the same things as these women, As far as younger women, my experiences have been like, okay, I had a group of young gals from Syracuse come up to me to let me know about a girl that had gotten assaulted at a high school. And they come to me, a lot of the younger women will come to me, like high school aged around there, they'll come to me with massive issues with stuff, looking for help. Whether it's messed up stuff going on at school, stuff with their parents, stuff with their peers, young men in the scene that are doing stuff not based on consent, and that's in a huge challenge with that is like, how do I get them to empower themselves, or how do I help them, achieve what they would like to do? Like, for example, these girls wanted to photocopy pictures of the assaulter and pass them out at punk shows. And I really wanted to be like, yeah, that's badass, go for it. But then it's like, if I say that's okay and really do that, like, they could get hurt. Like, and that's a liability for them to be going up against the punk scene and their schools and parents that didn't believe that this girl was assaulted and stuff. That's just one example of a challenge with working with younger folks. Victory with working with younger folks is just, getting that youthful energy and new ideas, and like when a 10th grader comes up to me and knows who Emma Goldman is, I mean, there's really not much that's better than that, in some ways. So, there's pros and cons with all of it. But at my current state right now with organizing and activism within feminist stuff, I'm extremely happy with where stuff is at. And I definitely say that like Estelle's generation has been so gracious to me and so encouraging, but the generation, even younger than you has seemed to stop. You too much. You're too punk. You're too loud. You're too radical. But I feel like women that are older than that really have been just, you're really great, Sera. You're doing great work and very encouraging. So I don't even know why that is. Why it skips a generation for encouragement, but that's what's happened, in my opinion.
She got some Pepsi now. You got some.
Yeah.
Well, it is interesting about that skip a generation thing, because even parents with their children, okay, but with their grandchildren have such a thing. And I have a feeling that there's that distance. It's like that I can like really appreciate where you're at and not be bothered by how many holes are in your face,
right.
or, that you're wearing all black, or your hair is red, or pink and blue and purple at the same time. It's like, but if it's your kid, or that, if the generations are next to each other, there does seem to be a harder, well, why can't you get it together? Or like, what did she realize?
And even
if only she would.
Oh yeah, right. And even at like the film showing last night, I had these two older women come up to me and say, you're doing such great work here. When I heard that you were born in 1982, I thought you could be my granddaughter, and how great that would be, and and I'm getting this great reception from the older woman. And it's so cool. I mean, it warms my heart. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us why something like the peace encampment, or this action and more than action that happened 25 years ago, how that can serve you as an activist and also just as an individual, not just but as well as an individual.
Well, it sure took up a huge chunk of history, within the peace movement. And it, I think the peace encampment was so just important for women of all ages to be able to have that self-determination and that encouragement to do stuff on their own. I don't know, I'm getting brain dead.
And we can broaden it to even how can it be useful, what's important about women knowing what happened before, understanding, we're talking about history, but precisely HeRSToRy and what came before you. How does that benefit you, if it does at all?
Well, it benefits me as far as strategy with actual organizing. If stuff didn't work, and you two can testify, okay, we tried this mode of organizing or direct action and it totally didn't work, and I know I probably don't have to go the same route, and it really allows me to be more creative and think of stuff on my own, so I don't have to, I'm sick of reinventing the wheel. So I can learn from, the great things that were effective that you guys did, and being able to carry that on, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. I think right now that globally, there's a real recognition from all sorts of liberation movements that we all need to find some way to work together. And I think right now, standing at the intersections of feminist work, of anti-war work, of queer liberation work, of labor movements, that the peace encampment has a lot to teach us right now about those intersections and about how to move forward. Also just on a really local level, when we saw the demonstration on the bridge and saw, the crowds of people waving flags and yelling "Kill the Jews," those are the people we grew up with. That were, those were very, very real, tangible, people to us.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of how, learning and even thinking about how to, disrupt and eventually get rid of the power structures just on a local level, as well as a global level, it has a lot of relevance for us.
Can you say a little bit more about why you feel like Seneca or that action can help that intersection of the different things that you said? What about it?
I think on really practical levels, like Sera was saying, for one thing, of literally what actions did people try, what strategies did people try. I think on the level of models of decision making with consensus and what worked and what didn't work. Mm-hmm. I also think right now, a lot of the radical movements that are white dominated are grappling with a lot of the same questions about race and about white supremacy that we can see in the peace encampment and tensions. And it's interesting too, because I think one of the things that's going on right now, where I really hope that folks are going to be looking to revolutionary feminist movements more and more, is that if in the 60s one of the things that happened was a lot of women who were involved in anti-war and civil rights work and black liberation movements, got sick of the misogyny within those movements and SDS or whatever, and left to do autonomous feminist organizing. I think right now some of those same process are happening in terms of a lot of people who are working on, anti-globalization, anti-sweatshops, and, especially at this point, it's been a little while since Seattle.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know how to say it. Yeah. I think there's a lot there.
Were
for
you
us to
saying there's
learn.
like a resurgence of I'm not sure if I understand. So back in the day, some of those women were being aware of the misogyny, and those
Yeah.
and you're saying some women are coming to that
Yeah.
realization in these.
Sure, because we're coming out of, girl power being sold to us in the 90s and just the same illusion that every generation of women goes through. Oh, we're liberated, especially after, the 60s and stuff. Like, okay, well, I can buy birth control or I can have an abortion and I can get a job, so things must be okay. It seems like everybody, every generation can find feminism again and say, oh, okay, it's still important. And I also think a great thing about Seneca, too, is that it really, it created this model of people living together and really having to do daily things, taking care of children, cooking, even setting up shelter, making shitters, as they said in the video, and it's so important because it's not just, oh, well, I went to this meeting for 2 hours, the revolution's going to happen. It's how we interact and how we work together with every interaction, and I just love that Seneca, did that, and that folks stayed there, even if it was just for a weekend. They had to participate, they had to help out. I just think that's just very important, and move beyond, just living in a house with, a bunch of students living in a house together or something. I just think it was so much more than that.
I think in terms of what the academics like to call prefigurative politics, where we're trying to have movements that look like the world that we want to see, there's so much to learn there from the encampment in terms of, what worked, what didn't work. And obviously there's huge differences now. I think one of the things that struck Sera and I a lot in terms of the differences is even in the ways that nonviolence played a role, and what a different, in some ways, context that we're working in, where we can really see during the peace encampment, it seemed like a lot of the folks who were talking about nonviolent civil disobedience were really breaking with a lot of the molds of, especially I imagine coming out of the 70s with these everybody who used to be in SDS is in some vanguard communist group telling everybody what to do. And then folks are finding ways for lots of people to participate, to make demonstrations accessible. And now we find a lot of the times that a lot of the people using some of the same language end up almost gatekeeping other people out of the movement. I don't think I'm really explaining that well, so I don't know if you want to run with that.
Keep going. Chime in.
Yeah. No, I think I'm going to hit a wall there.
Okay.
He sees the wall coming.
Yeah.
Like mountain head.
I warned you.
I need more coffee. Thank you. Yeah, and I really think I really do agree though with the breaking the mold of traditional nonviolent pacifism stuff too, because even okay, a lot of anarchists have a critique of nonviolence and pacifism, and sometimes I don't always believe that surrendering, walking towards the police like this is the most empowering thing I can do. But I think with the vision of what the peace encampment was, there's literally a little bit of metal in between you all and this depot, and you had to act in these specific ways to make it work and make it sustainable. It would have lasted one day if somebody would have thrown a Molotov over the thing, and you can't do, and that's another thing with what I was saying about day-to-day activities. Sure, maybe some 20-something white guy can go and do something, heroic and individualist and might be seen as violent. But I just loved the model of Seneca because everybody could participate. It was a very different way of doing stuff, and it made sense for that situation. You guys really wanted Seneca to last a really long time, and you wanted to just keep agitating and just keep messing with them, and to really break them down and demoralize them so they would finally leave, and I really, as an anarchist, really think that the model and stuff really made sense, and yeah, so
Very well put.
You're talking about that just now, it made me realize, although there's one place where somebody talks about the arrow, the hunting arrow. That
Yeah, I wanted to ask
house.
about that. Yeah.
Doesn't get mentioned that it was 2 inches from the gas tank, okay?
Oh my God.
All right, from the propane tank. But also that the front door and the front of the house got shotgun blasts, that fire, that
Tripwires were.
tripwires and pyrotechnics were set up in the woods, that at one point, broken windows on the vans and on the bus and slashed tires and and then the whole pipe bomb incident.
On top of the zapping and everything,
And
that
zapping.
too, you know?
That all of a sudden I was realizing, like, whoa, I just saw all of that, like, you know, a bunch of stuff happened that and we just kept hanging in there. Like,
Now, did anyone ever get hurt with these, like, aside from, like, how the police treated folks and they got arrested and stuff? I mean, did civilians, townspeople hurt you guys?
well,
I don't remember any.
Besides being verbally assaulted?
I don't remember any.
Not
incident. Just
on the
zapping.
land. I mean, somebody
Okay.
got hurt because, again, somebody, when they broke those windows, when they snuck on, Joanna Katie got hurt because she jumped out of her tent,
Oh.
hit the boardwalk,
Oh, yeah.
got, you know, that kind
But
of
nobody got, like,
trying
attacked.
to, you know, trying to alert other women.
Right.
But
No, not.
not on the land. I mean, you know, a few of us got punched out here and there. And one of the things like the base tried to do initially was they would, when women got arrested, they would take them to be processed, and then they would take them to a back gate, you know, which would be on a side road or something where the women could be disoriented, but locals or some guys from the base tried to run women over, put them into the ditch.
Yep.
And so then when the sheriff got involved, it's like, no, that cannot happen.
Yeah.
We are not gonna have, you know, that kind of death and destruction because it's outside of the base, the sheriff's department. So after that, there was pressure put on. And it's either you tell, you know, that the base calls and tells you what gate they're gonna be at, and the women started insisting, you know, what gate are you going to have them at? We'll be there to pick them up. Or revert to bringing them to the front gate, you know. But there were attempts. I mean, you know, people cut the water lines. They, you know, they tried to do.
Sabotage.
Yeah. But in spite of all that, it was like, you know, things kept going. We had 2x4s come through the front windows that had glass through 2 rooms to the very back wall, thrown with such force.
And, you know, it's.
And I wondered why the hell did
I don't even think about it. Why the hell did you say? What were you going to say?
It's amazing how these things really crystallize, you know, what patriarchy is, what the state is, what its violence is going to be, and, you know, of what people as, you know, different oppressed groups experience on an everyday level, how these things really do dramatize and, you know, force people to ask themselves, which side are you on? And, you know, for people who, in our everyday lives, for me as a queer guy, and wondering how it is that we fight back against that violence and how we do so collectively, I think models like the Peace Encampment that also, you know, are about community building, are about oppressed people relying on each other and analyzing our own oppressions and defining our own problems and our own power. I think people right now too, even in radical movements, are really looking for more models. I mean, right now, Sera and I are also involved in one of the things with the Republican and Democratic National Convention protests this year, is a really loose network of folks doing queer organizing, queer and trans organizing specifically. And it's called Bash Back is the name of all the different groups, you know. And so right now we're all wondering how it is that we bash back, you know. And I think that, yeah, I'm really excited to show people what we've learned, because I think when we understand that violence and when we're also able to see it crystallize, that I think people are able to stick together and fight it out. You know, but that only happens when we're able to define our own problems, when oppressed folks are able to rely on ourselves. And, you know, yeah.
And have support from each other. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
What is it that gives me hope for the future? 30 seconds doesn't start till I start talking.
Yeah.
Stuff that gives me hope is definitely learning from the past movements and getting the support and, you know, from folks who have been there and done that before me, and just the encouragement and just knowing that if I just keep moving and get the word out and just work as hard as I can towards whatever it is I'm working on, whether it's anarchist specific, feminist organizing, whatever, knowing that I just keep going and let people know what's up, that shit's gonna change. And patriarchy and the way things are going right now are not sustainable, but our ideas and practice are, so.